Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. One of our panelists, we're having some technical difficulty adding Jeff to the call, but he'll be hopefully joining us shortly. So we'll get started with introductions. CB Bhattacharya will be leading us off. CB.
Thank you, Leslie. Welcome, everyone, to the Center for Sustainable Business, Sustainability in the COVID-19 Era, Logistics and Supply Chain Management panel discussion. Thank you for joining us today. As you know, the Center for Sustainable Business quickly pivoted to try and understand the devastation and the suffering caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. And realizing that being bystanders was not an option, we wanted to take some ownership and be out there and lead from the front. We've done a number of things in the past 3 months, including a podcast series that some of you may have heard, where every week we have come up with one episode that discusses one particular aspect of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we've been interviewing leaders from around the world. We can certainly furnish details of that to you if you haven't heard of it before. We also have written some articles in terms of what the COVID-19 crisis means for business and how business needs to change going forward. And those are also available to you from our center if you haven't seen those. And last but not least, we come here to talk about one particular aspect of the COVID-19 crisis, which is supply chain management and logistics. As many of you know, things got extremely crazy and topsy-turvy when COVID-19 hit. And in particular, given that a lot of supply chains are based in China and other parts of the world, there were major disruptions. So what we have today is a discussion amongst 3 industry stalwarts who have dealt with these issues kind of front and center. All these 3 companies are members of the Center for Sustainable Business, which is essentially a member-supported organization. And we're very pleased to have these 3 today to discuss this incredibly important issue. And the whole discussion is going to be moderated by our Associate Director, Leslie Marshall, to whom I am pleased to hand over right now. Leslie?
Thank you, CB. So as we all know, COVID-19 has dramatically impacted the way most of us live our lives. And some of this impact is a function of the way that the pandemic has impacted global supply chains. So it's brought the depth of our interconnectedness into sharp relief. So the ability to adapt supply chains and resolve emerging logistical issues while limiting or eliminating negative impacts on society, the environment, and the long-term financial health of a company is critical to building a more sustainable business. But what does this look like in practice? How are companies adapting their supply chain and operations to respond to the challenges introduced by COVID-19? And what lessons can be learned from these adjustments as we look towards building a more sustainable world post-pandemic? So to help answer these questions, I'm joined today by representatives from 3 corporate partners of the Center for Sustainable Business, the University of Pittsburgh, Jeff Musig of Pitt, Ohio, Drew Vrena of Tarkett, and William Sapone of Peoples Natural Gas. So for the next 45 minutes or so, we'll use a moderated discussion format to hear how their companies have adapted their logistics and supply chain management to respond to COVID-19, as well as any lessons learned for building a more sustainable future post-pandemic. So I'll serve as the moderator, and I'll do my best to keep the conversation flowing. I have a list of prepared questions, but I'll also be monitoring the live questions coming in from our participants, from our audience today. So if you have a question at any point during the conversation today, please feel free to use that Q&A icon right there at the bottom of your screen for the webinar, and I'll be checking those, and where possible, asking your questions of our panelists as well. So please do not hesitate, and hopefully we'll get to all of your questions before the hour is up. So with that, it looks like Jeff has been able to join us. So Jeff, I'm going to unmute you and just make sure that we can hear you.
Hello.
Hi, good morning. So Jeff, I'd like to actually, if we can, just jump right in and get started with you. Jeff Musig is the Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer for Pitt, Ohio. So Jeff, could you give us a sense of what logistics and supply chain management looks like for a company like Pitt, Ohio?
Sure. So pleased to be here today and to participate. So Pitt, Ohio is a Pittsburgh-based corporation. We are an $800 million organization, started as a legacy LTL trucking company, but have really evolved to be what we call a transportation solutions provider. So we offer a host of transportation solutions, LTL, truckload, last mile. We now have gotten developed some warehousing solutions just recently, and a number of supply chain solutions.
Fantastic. Jeff, I actually want to take that same question and direct it over to Dhruv and William as well. So Dhruv Raina is the Product Stewardship Director for Tarkett. So could you give us a brief overview of Tarkett's business and an emphasis on how supply chain management factors into your role in the company?
Sure. Thank you, Leslie, and good afternoon, everybody. Glad to be here. So Tarkett is a $3 billion business headquartered in Paris, France. And it's a flooring business. We make pretty much every kind of flooring except ceramic. And the North American headquarters are in Cleveland, Ohio. That's where I'm based out of right now. So to set the context, really, how this role fits within the organization, we've looked at manufacturing from a very linear perspective in terms of make, use, and then throw at the end of life. In the few decades before now, there's been emphasis on recycling. So that's the next generation of how we create products. And as we move towards circular economy, that's where my role fits in terms of creating products that are circular by nature, circular by design, and that by 2030 we have business models, not just products, that continue to be in that circular loop where we are taking very little from the nature and really repurposing what we already have.
Dhruv, would you mind just giving a sort of brief description of what we mean when we say circular economy for anyone on the call who might not be familiar with the terminology?
Sure. So I have a couple of slides I could quickly share. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about. Linear economy is just take, make, use, and throw, essentially. That's what drives most of our consumption today. The recycling economy is more so with durable goods, our cars, refrigerators, so on and so forth, where we can recover some value, whether when we are manufacturing or at the end of life, post-consumer recycling that we do at our homes as well. And circular economy is a concept where you just create a product with the end in mind, so that not just you minimize waste during production, but at the end of life, you can have the ability to take those products back and create products of higher or equal value. So that way you don't have anything that goes into the landfill. And that's what I work on here at Tarkett.
Thank you for giving us that overview. William, I'll turn to you now. William Sapone is the Clean Energy and Transportation Advisor at Peoples Natural Gas, which is a fairly unique industry to be coming from with respect to this discussion being an energy utility, or an energy utility side. Could you explain the role of supply chain management and logistics from your perspective?
Well, perfect. And first of all, thank you for having me on this panel. It seems like you have an all-star panel. I'm just honored to be here and excited to kind of share a perspective. Before I get into that question, Leslie, I definitely want to say to those listening in that the Center of Sustainable Business at Pitt is a great platform for companies like Peoples, Tarkett, and Pitt, Ohio to really kind of be able to share the message of a lot of the things that these companies are doing as things like the circular economy continue to evolve. Sustainability becomes, again, continues to be a prime target for organizations. So excited to kind of bring some of our insights to this panel. one of the main reasons, and for those who are unfamiliar with Peoples, and I would like to ask Ash if he could bring up my second slide. Thank you, Ash. For those who are not familiar with Peoples, again, Peoples is a gas utility. We've been around for 130 years. So for the folks that are joining us here locally, they're very familiar with our business. But those who are joining us outside of Pennsylvania, again, we're a local distribution company. We provide natural gas in a safe and reliable way. And we have over 740,000 customers. I would like to ask Ash if you can move to my last slide, the fourth slide, please. This slide is what I'll be using, Leslie, to kind of answer a lot of the questions we'll be touching on this panel. It's really just to help us kind of discuss how our company is thinking about navigating the energy transition from disruption to growth. And what we mean by disruption, it's not only that pandemic that's really been disrupting every business here in the US and globally for that matter. But what's exciting is that we've been seeing a lot of trends that have been accelerated by the pandemic. For that, we'll be discussing how energy and specifically transportation fuel is increasingly becoming a supply chain and logistic issue. What's really interesting is that the US EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency, has named the power generation sector and transportation the #1 and #2 emitting sectors in our country. And if you look at the trends, the power generation sector has done an amazing job. And because of access to low-cost technologies like wind and solar, combined heat and power and microgrids, and now even more so with battery storage becoming front and center as a core part of that strategy, we're seeing a lot of deployment of that. Over the same time period, we're starting to see that the cumulative change in greenhouse gas emissions has actually gone down for the power generation sector. Unfortunately, that is not the same for the transportation sector. And we're seeing the inverse. Fuel economy continues to be an issue. The transportation sector continues to be heavily dependent on petrol fuels. And it's our responsibility to start thinking about alternative fuels. That's where our organization really comes into play. We've been promoting alternative fuels for a number of years. Peoples also has continued to replace its own fleet to utilize natural gas as an alternative. And even more so in the future, as Drew had kind of alluded to earlier with the circular economy, kind of going down that path, we're also thinking about how do we integrate renewable natural gas, a lower carbon fuel that's continuing to emerge as an advanced biofuel. And we're excited to kind of share a little bit more about that on this panel.
Thank you, William. I appreciate that and think it's actually kind of a nice fit here. We have 3 very different industries, but when we think, you mentioned transportation being one, I know Pitt, Ohio has done some innovation in the alternative vehicle space. So Jeff, I don't know if you want to talk a bit about Pitt, Ohio's attempt to think about its fleet and how you might answer some of these challenges posed by what William's talking about with emissions and things.
So we have looked at alternative fuels. The challenge with some of them have been around the idea of the productivity, the reliability of the fleet, and the productivity associated with the time to fuel the units. And that has, while we were early adopters and experimented in that area, we have really not found it to be feasible to run in our operation today on a significant scale. We always are looking to try to maximize the fuel efficiency of our fleet. So we've done a lot around driver training to maximize MPG. We've done a lot around the right size truck. So putting the right size shipment on the right size truck. We run smaller trucks and try to be efficient that way, driving the MPG performance of the company. A lot of our innovation has come more in at our terminal locations, where we have established a microgrid right here in Pittsburgh and Harmer, Pennsylvania, and we're now bringing one online in the Cleveland area in Parma, Ohio. And there we've partnered with the University of Pittsburgh, Swanson School of Engineering, to create a microgrid using renewable energy sources, solar panels and windmills, storing the product on site, the electricity on site, using it to power the buildings. The new location in Parma, Ohio, will expands on the proof of concept in Harmer. It will have 8 times the power generation capabilities. And our hope one day is to be able to power electric trucks using renewable energy sources to supply the fuel or the charge. So that's the vision. We're moving towards it, but we need the technology to catch up a little bit with where we know we want to go.
Right.
So.
Right. So I don't know if it would be in that space or in some other aspect of your business, but when you think about how you've had to respond to COVID-19 in the last couple of months, could you provide 1 or 2 really concrete examples of how you've adapted your
Sure.
supply chain?
So I think the first one, we really try to keep the strategy, the sustainability strategy simple from a communication standpoint, execution standpoint. So like many companies, we focus on people, planet, and purpose. And the people part is huge in our business. We're a service business. We employ 3,000 people across the enterprise. And so it's getting their engagement and making sure we're putting their needs front and center. So as COVID-19 in the middle of March, burst across the United States, especially the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, where we operate, a lot of fear around how do we maintain the health of our employees. They're exposed. They're out there picking up, delivering shipments. How do we take care of our customers who are moving critical goods to market? We do a lot in the medical supply area. So it wasn't like we were an essential business. So we need to be out there. But how do we keep our drivers safe? So we really put in a lot of social distancing practices with our drivers, not only in our buildings, at our terminal locations, making sure that they were coming with minimal contact with their fellow employees, which was a vast departure from where we've been before, where we were encouraging the social dynamic, trying to build the culture, make people feel comfortable together. But that needed to change. The other part, obviously did a lot of the basics around cleanliness and cleansing and cleaning the buildings and all that. That's pretty standard now at this point. But I think the other thing we did is at time of delivery, typical in our industry, a driver will deliver a shipment. He'll hand a piece of paper called a delivery receipt to the consignee, ask that consignee to review the condition of the shipment, make sure it's intact, and then sign the delivery receipt. Well, that does require some closer interaction, less than 6 feet. We dispensed with what is an industry norm and went out there in the marketplace and said, we will no longer do that. From 6 feet away, we'll stand a distance. We'll let the customer inspect the freight. We'll record the customer's name, and we'll move on our way. And, for better part of 10,000 shipments a day, all of a sudden what would have been not accepted pre-March 15th became very much accepted. And in the days and weeks that followed, we saw many of our competitors fall in line around this as well. So that practice continues today. And it's been, from a business perspective, while it's keeping our drivers safe, it's also a more efficient practice because our drivers are getting in and out of these buildings, minimizing the amount of time that they're spending performing the delivery. So it's kind of had a silver lining, if you will, as well. The upshot, all of our social distancing efforts, our new processes at time of delivery, we've had really minimal disruption to our workforce. Mercifully, very few drivers becoming ill, and we've been able to, if they are, they've been able to quarantine effectively, and it hasn't run through our buildings. So that's been a very positive for us, our employees most importantly, but also our customers.
It's really useful to get that industry specific example of how this would look in your line of work. I actually want to ask Dhruv as well, if you could reflect on 1 or 2 examples of specific ways you've had to respond or adapt to COVID.
Sure. So I was a management consultant for the longest time, and then I went to CATS for my MBA. So when I came to Target, it was a lot about frameworks and how we put that into practice. And so one of the first projects that my team worked on was, do a supplier risk assessment of where they are geographically located, what risks they represent, apart from, the economic risks from an environmental perspective. And we shared that with our procurement partners within the company. But little did I know that, of course, that work laid the bedrock of how fast we could adapt. but I had no idea that a pandemic like this could essentially shut your operations down within a matter of hours. Thankfully for us, I think the focus on people, like Jeff said, so we incorporated social distancing within our facilities. We mandated our suppliers, also practiced, the facility or the requirements set out by CDC and other federal agencies. So that helped definitely. We ran all but one facilities in North America, and the facility we had to shut down was simply because the demand for that product went down. But every other facility was online throughout. And so were our suppliers because of the emphasis on the humans. We did incorporate a lot of technological solutions in terms of GPS-based trucking and delivery systems, where we eradicated the need for human-to-human interaction. But that again was impacted by we had a cyber attack in our headquarters in Paris. So for 2 or 3 weeks, all our IT systems were offline. But we came back to that very basic tenet of, if you lay the foundation correctly, identifying your risks and then, focusing on your people, because if the people are safe, then, your operations keep running with or without technology. So, an eventful few weeks, but I think they're coming back stronger than ever.
Thank you. And William, the same to you, a few examples of.
Yeah, what's exciting is that our company is very customer centric. A lot of our customers see us as an extension of their organization. So their challenges become our challenges. What's really interesting, and I kind of alluded to this earlier when we were talking about how a lot of the trends that we were seeing in the market that were already disrupting our sector, things like electrification. We're seeing that companies like PitOhio, taking in microgrids and experimenting with new business models and looking at their fleets and how they can utilize power as a source of fuel for their vehicles. We're also seeing, again, that's because of our customers we're so heavy depending on their success. This pandemic really caused a challenge for a lot of our businesses and our communities. We've been seeing lots of unemployment across the US and specifically here in Pennsylvania as well. And I would like to really emphasize renewable natural gas. Again, it's an emerging new fuel that's really exciting to see. It not only is it lower carbon compared to geologic natural gas, but what's really interesting is that because of the pandemic and because of the job losses that we've seen across the few months, specifically farms and farmers have been impacted in a very disproportionate manner when compared to other sectors. RNG, for those who are unfamiliar, come from various sources, and one of the primary sources where you can actually generate and produce RNG are farms. So right now that we're experiencing job losses and farms have stopped production, RNG actually gives them an opportunity to continue to generate revenue and stay afloat during this crisis. Again, because the interaction with the production and getting that product to market, farmers, the only thing they need is a connection to the existing pipeline network. Once that connection is made, that transaction happens virtually. There's no person-to-person contact, which makes it a very unique business model for farmers to continue to diversify their income by looking into the production of biofuels. So again, we're excited that we're bringing this new concept, and we want to continue to promote it to be able to meet with our customers, a lot of the agricultural space here in Pennsylvania, to be able to make them aware that this is something that as Pennsylvanians, we should all be focusing on.
William, are there examples that you could provide of customers that you have who are using vehicles that are powered by biogas or renewable natural gas right now?
Yes. So what's really exciting is that right now, again, I think I've mentioned that RNG and biofuels are really being generated Right now, there's various sources. I talked a little bit about the agricultural sector. Another sector is actually wastewater treatment facilities. But the primary production today, because of the access to technology and the concept, is actually landfills. People's Natural Gas as a company, we're interconnected to 5 landfills. And again, we're seeing a lot of interest in the growth in this segment. And we're actually bringing online a 6th landfill into our system that will be interconnected, that will be injecting renewable natural gas into our system, supplying a larger supply of RNG. Once that gas comes into our system, and then it gets distributed to customers that are using it to fuel their vehicles. What's interesting as well is that a lot of these landfills, not only are they producers of energy, but they're also consumers, essentially becoming prosumers. What's exciting is that a lot of the producers are actually selling off excess amounts of production of gas, and part of it they're using it on site to run their microgrids or CHP systems that utilize the renewable natural gas. So we're seeing this with our customer base. Vogel landfills here in Western PA, they have a facility that's using renewable natural gas, and excess gets transported into our system. So it's really exciting to see our customers starting to use that. We want to continue to promote it and have others be able to benefit from not only from the use, but also having to benefit farmers and other producers of advanced biofuels.
Sure. So it sounds like this is an opportunity in many ways for your business as you're expanding your portfolio. And then both Dhruv and Jeff, you spoke a lot to the responses that you've made that center people and the effects of the pandemic on them, whether that's employees or customers. And so I want to sort of push you all to think, there's things that have gone well or that have been effective, but are there things that you've tried in the last couple of months that haven't gone according to plan? And I'm certain the cyber attack was not planned, but are there other examples of initiatives you've tried to roll out or responses that you've tried to make in adapting your supply chains to the current situation that have not gone as you had hoped, or there have been sort of unexpected challenges?
Sure. Pandemic is definitely, when it comes to life, everybody's scared, and then you look for a solution, and that's what this pandemic has done. What we have faced is, because we make flooring a product that goes into the interiors of homes and buildings, we've gotten a ton of requests from customers on how can we clean this effectively? Can you provide, better solutions to clean? Can you add antimicrobial, chemicals that will just kill microbes to begin with? And our answer has been a definite no. So how do you kind of risk your business when your customer wants something? This is a perfect example, because, we've had to educate our large accounts, large customers in terms of the ill effects of, these anti-microbial chemistries that can cause cancer and other reproductive harms in humans. And there's very little efficacy from CDC in research and US EPA showing that they actually prevent any infection to spread, especially from a flooring surface on which we usually walk. We don't sit, and we don't, eat the flooring. So it's been a lot of, how do you be empathetic to your customer and really help them navigate this crises in a scientific manner that is not impacting your business or their lives, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. So Leslie?
Yeah. Please, Jeff, if you want to chime in as well. Yeah.
So if I could think of an example, it kind of mirrors a little bit of what Dhruv has said. At Pitt, Ohio, we've had customer requests to perform what we call inside deliveries. So instead of taking the shipment just to the loading, the platform or the receiving dock, we need to sometimes take it to the street level. Through COVID-19, these inside deliveries were typically putting it inside the first door. And initially, customers were pretty receptive to that. As regions have gone from red to yellow to green, we've seen increasing demands for, can you wheel it down 30 feet down a hallway, put it inside another room? And typically, while that was a service we performed previously, our sense is that we still need to maintain social distance and protect our drivers' health and truthfully our consignees' health as well. And that probably isn't the wise thing to do, to be spending that much time in an enclosed, narrow hallway together. So we've refrained from that, and it's been a different conversation with different customers. Some are more accepting of it, with understand that it's something they'd like, but maybe can't have today, and others are a little bit more insistent. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but again, you need to work through it, and you have to have your priorities straight. And the priority is keep the health of your employees, front and center, and then we'll do everything we can to take care of our customers in light of that. So that's one area. I think I flip it around for one quick one though, is I think what we find a lot of times is we're seeing a lot of silver linings in COVID-19 and or as a result of COVID-19. And William kind of touched a little bit on this. One of the ones is so many of our employees in every business is continuing to work from home. So one of the byproducts of that is less traffic on the streets. Well, we're an essential business. We're out there still delivering. And what we're finding is that we're able to navigate city streets so much more efficiently with so much less congestion. So the MPG performance for our fleet is improving because we have less idle time. And we're able to be more efficient from that standpoint. Who would have thought that a pandemic could improve your fleet's efficiency? But from that standpoint, it has. And I think it's continuing to look for those opportunities where the COVID-19 is a catalyst for change around digitization, exchanging of information no longer by paper. That our industry is kind of backward in that area, and now we see customers willing to go in that route.
Right, that's interesting because I think the lesson learned there might be some implications for policy making, right? If we can move more single occupancy vehicles off the road, then it's going to have all these ripple effects into your fleet's efficiency and how we can move products from
right. And if you had talked to us pre-COVID-19 and you said, well, what's one of the biggest challenges to your industry long term? It would have been a lack of an infrastructure program to increase the infrastructure to handle the increased traffic. Well, that's kind of gone away right now, and I'm curious to see in the months that unfold. I think more people will continue. There'll be probably a much larger blend of telecommuting in the future than there was in the past, and so maybe that's going to be a break on the need to add more lanes to highways or to arterial roads, which could be another silver lining.
It's a great point. William, do you want to speak to whether or not there's been things that haven't gone quite according to plan or some challenges that are sort of new to your business?
Yes, this is not new to our business, but it's, again, as a customer-centric organization, our customers are very, very important to us. And again, because of the economic impacts that our country has been facing, utilities, like Peoples and others are very well prepared for these types of scenarios. As you can imagine, we're critical infrastructure here in the US. That's what we're classified as. And what's really interesting is that we're seeing definitely lower income based families and in our community and our customers that are being impacted by COVID-19 and unable to pay their utility bills. But we deal with this every winter season. And so we've been very well prepared to address these issues. There's the Dollar Energy Funds for those who are not familiar. And if you can't contribute, I highly recommend contributing, every winter or every summer, continue to fund the Dollar Energy Fund. Also, we're dependent on the LIHEAP or the lower income heating program that's available by the federal government. And we've seen with the stimulus package that was released earlier this year that part of those fundings that were appropriated for this budget we've seen an increase in LIHEAP dollars that help offset some of the costs that are burdened on our customers. So again, as a utility, we're excited that we continue to play a critical role for our customers and continue to bring this benefit to all of our customers. So we're very excited for these programs and highly encourage to folks that are listening in to contribute to these critical funds.
Right. So there's different options if you're thinking about your residential versus your commercial customers, I'm sure. I also want to ask if you all would open up a little bit and tell us if there are, each of you has expertise in sustainability specifically within your organization. So when you think about how you've adapted your operations, and Jeff, you spoke a bit to the positive side of this a minute ago, have there been trade-offs when you think about the sustainability of some of the changes you've had to make versus the need to respond quickly, the need to adapt to a very rapidly evolving situation? Have you seen moments where you're needing to trade off expediency to meet a need? You talked about being parts of essential industries or critical infrastructure in a way that maybe isn't the most sustainable, especially if you think about environmental sustainability for the long term, but you've had to do it now, sort of a trade-off, and in maybe a specific example, if that's true for any of you.
Sure. So Pitt, Ohio operates a large fleet from Chicago to New Jersey down through Virginia. Okay. And we pride ourselves on next day delivery. That's what why our customers use us. So COVID-19, we have a diverse group of customers, and we have some customers whose business surged. So created some inefficiencies from I need a Saturday pickup, a Sunday pickup, a late night pickup. Not the most efficient way to handle the business, but we'll run a truck empty to make that pickup because that product needs to move. We've got some customers running 3 shifts, 7 days a week. But we've got a lot of customers who saw depressed economic activity as their customers' businesses closed. And as much as we tried to adjust our workforce and the number of trucks we had on the street, the truth of the matter is, as you move into your more remote areas, if you're still going to provide next day service, you need to run that truck in that area. So if you can run that truck with 15 shipments on there, your carbon emissions per shipment is going to be, and you're traveling 200 miles, your carbon emissions per shipment is obviously going to be less. That's the key metric we use to measure our success with our sustainability initiatives. Well, the trade-off is now we're still going to run those 200 miles, but now we're only running it with 10 shipments. Need to provide our customers with the service, but the trade-off has been is that from a carbon emission standpoint, we're not as successful as we were before. So the solution: have your customers come back, bring on new customers, grow the business back, and all will be good. That's what we're working very hard.
Believe it. Drew or William, do you want to?
Sure, I can go. So as this pandemic unfolded and as we needed more and more medical facilities, for the surge that was going to come, especially in the East and the West Coast. On the East and the West Coast, there were a lot of facilities that were created overnight, and because we manufacture locally, we could provide a healthcare type flooring product for these facilities. But we didn't veer from our promises, which is, make the product right in the first place, and then take it back at the end of use or life, so that we can reuse that product. So there was an increase, I would say, in the carbon footprint because of transportation. For 3 months you use the flooring and then you bring it back. Thankfully, these areas were on the East and West Coast, so the transportation footprint wasn't big enough. But then again, during this pandemic, when I see how plastic bag usage has gone up significantly, like you can't take your own bags to the store, I think that's a small price to pay, for a responsible manufacturer like Target as long as we take back our flooring and bring back and recycle it. So yes, there have been trade-offs, but I think overall, it's because the way the business has been structured in terms of, doing good always, that we've not faced significant hurdles or any long-term or even short-term impacts, to be honest.
Thank you.
Hey, Leslie. So from a people's perspective, for over a decade now, we've been focused on replacing pipeline. That's one of our primary programs that we have at Peoples. what's really exciting is that as we continue to, again, promote alternative fuels, microgrids and CHP technologies that utilize gas, it's also very important to address methane and fugitive methane issues. So the pipeline replacement program that we've deployed, again, over the years, and annually we fund millions of dollars of capital to replace miles and miles of pipeline. That again, this is replacing aging infrastructure with brand new pipelines with new materials that again will last the next few decades. So for us, it's exciting as we continue to work with our customers and helping them address their greenhouse gas emissions and carbon footprints. We continue to promote again microgrids and alternative fuels like natural gas and RNG as an alternative fuel for vehicles. It's very important for us to really invest in our infrastructure as well, and we continue to do that.
Right. So that also reminds me, you're talking a lot about your operations as you're expanding for the future, not necessarily just in response to COVID, but recognizing that these sort of global challenges, which, as many people have pointed out, we face climate change as something that is going to require wide scale collaboration, as well as this response to COVID-19. So one thing I would like each of you to also reflect on, and you've each done this to a certain extent thus far already, is to think about the lessons that you're learning now, what you expect in terms of how those will impact your corporations or your companies' attention to sustainability in the future. So all of you have companies that have sustainability built somewhere into your mission, your values, your operations by default in some ways or explicitly in others. So has the pandemic affected the way you think about this sustainability from a strategic perspective? Has it become more critical, top of mind? And reflect on that a bit. And just to sort of give a little more background on this, we know that individual searches on Google search engine have skyrocketed for individual ability to live a more sustainable lifestyle. How can I be more sustainable on an individual level? I imagine maybe some of your clients, corporate clients or residential clients in the case of Peoples, may be making new demands of your companies now that folks are paying more attention to sustainability in their own lives and how they impact climate change on a larger scale and also these other processes. So would you all each speak to that? And if we want to start with Dhruv this time, and then maybe William, and then Jeff, please.
Sure. If I can share another slide of mine that I had quickly to illustrate. There you go. Thank you. Because this is a logistics-related webinar, I'm thinking that our participants are probably thinking there's a lot of people talk, and we've talked very little about logistics. But to put it into perspective, I mentioned that our goal as a business is to be a circular by nature, by design business by 2030, and there's several facets to it, and logistics is definitely the core of how we can make this happen. So let me focus on just one aspect of logistics that we face, which is closing the loop. There's many facets related to logistics, but when you talk about closing the loop, I think this pandemic has only reinvigorated not only our leadership, but even our folks to, make it faster. What used to be our 7-year plan is now looking more like 3 to 4 year plan. So one of the examples is, how do we close the loop, which is basically bringing the products back at end of life and either putting them into our products or finding another use of that product. So we've had several collaborations that we are looking at right now with companies 10 times the size of ours who are equally passionate about how can we solve this together. So I see people, reinvigorated not just within Target, but I see our partners and other companies, actually, the suppliers and our customers wanting to do more. So what was going to be the decade of decisiveness has turned into half a decade of decisiveness. So I'm really I think this is going to be really, really good in terms of, and we're already seeing this with Unilever, coming up with one of the boldest goals just a couple of days back, and Microsoft has done that before. I think we'll see more and more of this with companies, mid-sized companies like Target and others. This trend would only accelerate, I believe.
Thank you. William?
Yes, Ash, do you mind bringing up my fourth slide again? Thank you. Perfect. To answer this question, Leslie, I want to focus on kind of our new investment priorities that we've seen over the last few years. As you mentioned, the way that we've addressed sustainability as a core part of our strategy from each of our customer segments, industrial and commercial and residential. To your point, we do address them very, very differently because these are very unique and different sectors and customer part of our customer segments. What's really interesting is that, again, as we've continued to promote the use of microgrids and CHP, one prime example on a commercial scale, the Pittsburgh Airport, we're building a 20 megawatt microgrid plant that incorporates 7 acres of solar along with that project. But as we look at residential, we've definitely seen a lot of adoption and deployment of rooftop solar, which is really exciting for us as well. And going along with that trend and really focusing our investment and priorities into this sector as well. We formed a partnership and invested in a company called Watt Fuel Cell. What's really exciting is that Watt Fuel Cell it's located in here nearby, about an hour away from Pittsburgh. What's exciting is that Watt Fuel Cell is developing a solid oxide fuel cell. For those who are not familiar with the technologies, for us is very, very exciting to really talk about how fuel cells will be the future of power generations at the home. What's exciting is that unlike traditional generators that take in fuel, whether that's propane, natural gas, oil, that burn the fuel to generate power, and again, you get a lot of emissions when you go through that process. What's exciting about solid oxide fuel cells is that they take in fuel, whether that be propane, natural gas, or renewable natural gas. And again, unlike the traditional method of burning it to generate power, you're actually utilizing a chemical reaction that happens internally in the fuel cell. So the byproduct is water, small amounts of heat that can again be recovered. If it's deployed at a home, the heat can then be contributed to supplementing hot water needs for the home, whether that's heating the home or domestic hot water use as well. And because of that reaction, there's low amounts of carbon emissions that actually are attributed by this process. What's exciting again is that as we're thinking about not only the technology, we're coming up with business models that allow us to deploy this in a safe and unique manner where customers don't have to deploy capital in order for us to be able to use this technology. People's is thinking about ways to reduce bringing this to market in a very unique way. And as this project continues to evolve, as a company, we'll be able to kind of bring more updates on where we're at in that aspect of that project.
William, I just want to ask you to follow up on this one. Are you seeing a lot of demand from your customers, your residential customers, for these options that are more sustainable or allow for on-site generation in some way? Or is that something that you in your role or Peoples has sort of seen the market, seen the future, and you're really pushing this and trying to drive demand? Or are you seeing that demand from your customers, or is it both?
I think it's a little bit of both, but we are seeing a strong demand from customers. When we initially announced this project a few years ago, we also released an email account where people who were interested could reach back out to us. That number continues to grow year over year. people are very excited and ready to adopt these technologies in their homes. And I think that's a very exciting way to kind of capture the interest and the demand that we're seeing. And again, as we work with Watt Fuel Cell to continue to increase the efficiencies, bring down that cost, we're excited to see where the day that we'll be able to deploy these technologies and have it in customer homes.
Fantastic. Same to you, Jeff. What does the future look like?
So I think if we look at what COVID-19 has done, I think it's validated our sustainability strategy. We didn't talk a lot about agility, but to be successful through COVID-19, I think you need to be agile as an organization because it's fast changing in terms of just the information you had at hand and how you're responding to it. And that's something I think we're going to continue to emphasize going forward because things just seem like they're very volatile out there and change is coming at us fast. But with regard to validating our sustainability strategy, if you just go back again to our, the three basics that we look at, the people, planet, and the purpose, we spend we get a lot of publicity for what we do around the planet with, as I mentioned, with the microgrid at our facilities. They're unique and they're different. But really, I think the day in and day out strategy that we're always executing is with our people. And what we've learned through COVID-19 is this emphasis on our people has served us well. It's allowed us to take care of them, for them to be engaged with our company, but also allowed us to take care of our customers through challenging times. And I'm sure we're just going to double down on that strategy and use that. We oftentimes say our people are our secret sauce in our industry. And I'm pretty sure we're going to continue to make that our focus going forward.
Thank you. So I also just want to remind all of our listeners in the audience that if you have any questions you'd like to ask of our panelists, to please just type it into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You'll see an icon. You can click on that and enter your question. And hopefully we will be able to get to that in the next few minutes. I want to follow up with one last question. It's for the entire group. When you think so if we think about circular economy, calling back to the image on the slide that Drew presented, there's intense business interest. When you think about your business to business relationships, when a company like Pitt, Ohio has LEED certified distribution centers, right? That affects the footprint of a company like Tarkett, which needs to move their products from place to place. And I was hoping that you all might be able to reflect on the role of making the role of investing in making your supply chains more sustainable, how that provides a kind of competitive advantage, right? We can talk about how this is the right thing to do, which it absolutely is, but it also might help you in your negotiating for those business to business partnerships.
I'd be happy to jump in there, Leslie.
Sure.
I think what we find in our business today, first of all, it's the demand to work with a sustainable vendor there's no doubt about it, that's increasing. When we started on this journey, probably 7-8 years ago, there were very few customers who expressed much interest in sustainability. And if it did, it tended to be scope one. They were looking at what was happening inside their building, very little interest in what was happening with their vendors. That is starting to change. Increased requests now for a carbon report. We offer a customer carbon calculator. It's kind of unique in the industry. Our competitors don't offer that. And we're getting more inquiries this year than we have ever gotten before for this. That said, I tend to find that price and service is typically what qualifies you for the business, but it's those value adds like sustainability that can win the business for you. Customers aren't willing to pay extra for that. But if all things are equal, the price and service is where they want it to be. Well, why wouldn't I want to align with a forward-thinking company, one that's doing right by their employees, but doing right by their community, and one that's going to help me achieve my goals as well. Over time, could Pitt, Ohio potentially command a premium to be able to do it? I think conceivably that's possible. and there may be a segment of customers that are prepared to pay that. But what we found is our industry is extremely competitive. So if we can find those slight differentiators, we're going to tease all the advantage out of it that we can.
Thank you, Drew. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. I think when we started investing in and truly measuring our sustainability impact way back in 2009, we started with analyzing the chemistry of our products and what kind of impact they were having on people when folks bought our flooring tile and put it in their buildings. 70% of our business is commercial construction and renovation. So if you think about it, that was an investment we are making that there were no goals out there. Like what do you benchmark against? Nobody was doing that. But then a few years down the road, architects started asking for, hey, building product manufacturers, we need nutrition label on your products. What is in your products? And so we were up and ahead, with maybe one another competitor to get into those specifications. So that was an advantage right away. And while we were doing all of this, it's not done in isolation. We were also working at zero waste plants, energy reduction, greenhouse gas reduction goals, so on and so forth. So now when the conversation is changing with our customers around carbon and how much carbon is in this product that I'm putting in my building, we again come out up ahead because we've invested so much in the last 10, 12 years that that's a clear differentiator for us. And sure, we can't go after every project, but that's not how we built the company. Our founders always thought about creating a product that was not cheap, that was durable, and that was not meant for everybody, to be honest. And although we now have an array of products that address the equity of everybody being able to afford that product, it's still made with the same standards. So it definitely serves the trends might change, the conversation might change, but if you invest in what's really right, that does help you differentiate competitively when you go to do business in the field.
Actually, would like to pick up on this question of doing what is right, because we have an audience question that's related to this. So, has the pandemic spurred more conversations on corporate purpose, why we do what we do, those kind of questions among senior leadership and or employees at your companies?
Absolutely. The conferences I go to virtually now, my message, if it was not front and center, is more about purpose. So just asking, the audience, what is the purpose of your business? They think that the mission is the purpose or something else is the purpose till we, start talking about what purpose is and then they are like, oh yeah, I really like my job, but that's not what, my company's our company's purposes, our business's purposes. So I agree. And you'll see, the corporate sustainability rankings for businesses just came out yesterday or day before. All the top 100 companies in that list, I'm sure at least 50% of those have a clearly defined purpose. And the ones that don't have it somewhere embedded in their CSR reports. So it's definitely becoming a conversation amongst businesses that never thought of purpose as what it is or what does it mean even.
Thank you. William or Jeff, would either of you like to chime in?
Yes. For one, kind of building off of what Drew said, what's exciting is that Peoples as an organization, and for those who are unfamiliar, we have some exciting news to share with you all. As of March 16, we were actually joined Aqua America into one organization. Our parent company has now rebranded as Essential Utilities, which is exciting because we're now one of the largest publicly traded utility organizations here in the U.S. With ESG issues becoming really big here in the country. I think as Drew had mentioned, with those top 100 and talking about CSR reporting, transparency is going to be key to our organization. We're excited again that Aqua America has been very transparent organization as a public organization. And we're going to be looking towards their leadership now as essential as a combined organization to be able to again, be more transparent about our operations, to continue to work with our customers. We usually fall under scope 2 with our customers that are looking for, again, reductions in carbon emissions, and becoming more transparent will help us continue to grow and promote areas like renewable natural gas and our pipeline replacing program that continues to expand and reach other markets that have never been able to reach before. So we're excited about our new organization that's very unique here in the U.S. And we're excited that also the center, for those who are listening in who are not members and would like to become members, definitely reach out to any one of us or Leslie, our perfect moderator for this webinar. I think it's exciting and it's important, and because of our membership here, really shows that as an organization, we continue to be more transparent, to continue to, again, we're not saying that we have all the answers, but we continue to partner so that we can learn from companies like Pitt, Ohio, companies like Enel, who, again, we're not able to be part of this webinar, but they're part of our membership. And Tarket, again, we're excited to learn so much from one another. And I definitely highly encourage the listeners who are listening in that want to continue and partner with the University of Pittsburgh to please do reach out to Leslie and find out more about what you can do here in our area and as an organization.
Thank you, William. Jeff, do you want to have some
Sure.
last remarks?
Yeah, so I think COVID-19 threw into sharp relief what the purpose of Pitt, Ohio is. Here we are, the middle of June, and we're probably in a different place with COVID-19 than we were. It's hard to already reach back to the middle weeks of March, but they're scrambling to build a hospital in the Jacob Javits Center in New York City. The different departments of health in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Maryland are scrambling for equipment to move critical goods, medical supplies or food products in different places. And Pitt, Ohio was pleased to support that effort in a very large way. A phone call would come in from an unexpected source, and we'd make trucks available middle of the night, over the weekend, and get those critical supplies where they needed to go, when they needed to go. It's at moments like that, you're proud to work at Pitt, Ohio, proud to work in an industry, and proud to be part of the solution. There are many days, when we're moving, some of our goods are not that essential. They're more focused around recreation or whatever. But those are good and all great industries too. But I think it became very apparent to us all that just how important transportation is for the functioning of our economy and really the functioning of our society.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. I think that will resonate with all of us. I also just want to, as we're closing out here, to thank all of our panelists for your time today. It's much appreciated, great discussion. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank Ash Brady from Pitt Business, who supported us from a technological perspective, and Alyssa Martinek, who's the sustainability coordinator in the Center for Sustainable Business, who did a lot of work to make this possible today. This has been recorded, and we will be posting it and making it available on our website, which is www.sustainablebusiness.pitt.edu. Also on our website, you can find a number of other opportunities to get involved, whether that be through future virtual events like this one, or by checking out our podcast series, which has weekly episodes that feature interviews with largely sustainability professionals on topics related to COVID-19. So if you'd like also to learn more about our partners in the center, after we all log off here, there's going to be on your screen, we'll be playing a short 3-minute video that gives a nice overview of the center through interviews with our corporate partners. So in addition to the folks who are represented here from Peoples, Tarket, and Pitt, Ohio, we also work with BASF, IBM, Enel, Consol, and PPG. So I encourage you to stick around if you have a few minutes and just watch the video, and also check out our website. So thank you all for your time and your attendance. Be well.
I have a belief that small actions make big differences, and I look on the center as a small gesture on our part to make a difference to sustainability, by which I mean kind of the health of our planet, the health of the people on the planet, and the economic health of companies or profit. So we're looking to transition companies in the United States and the world over from a focus on the single bottom line today, which is profit, to a focus on the triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit.
I think it's really important for the University of Pittsburgh to partner with industry and other external partners related to sustainability, because we have a lot of goals here operationally tied into teaching, learning, research, and innovation. But we also need to know what we need to do in our own buildings and our own campus. And there are a lot of benefits from learning from what other people are doing at similar scales and different scales, locally, nationally, and globally.
We're getting to a point in the near future where companies like Peoples Natural Gas have to be able to transform and be able to be innovative, to be able to capture new customers. And for us, it's really exciting that we're tapping into these new markets with new technologies that are bringing clean and affordable energy to our customers.
The work is important because it's important work. It's the future that we're talking about. It's the success of our business. It's the role that we serve in the communities where we operate, and it's about channeling the purpose and passion of the people that we work with towards meeting long-term sustainability objectives.
I'm most looking forward to, at this point, now that the Pitt CSB has gone through its launch, its kickoff, I'm looking to grow in concepts as we further refine the objectives and the actual actions we can take to make a difference. The intent is great, the participation is great, the objectives are defined. But now let's get into delivering. And that's where, for me, the excitement comes. And that's the phase we're at right now, where we have to start delivering on those. And that's a growing phase.
I think it's great that Pitt has created the Center for Sustainable Business. What I'm most looking forward to is engaging with the people who are training the future leaders of business and of America on a topic that is of extraordinary importance for all of our futures.
We have been involved with telling our story in a variety of different ways, and we felt like there was a real opportunity to partner with the CAT School, and in particular the Center for Sustainable Business, just to keep telling our story and learn from others.
We're excited about the future of sustainability through the program. We're excited to partner with the University of Pittsburgh in this new Center for Sustainable Business. We're excited about the talent that will come out of the Center for Sustainable Business and the impact that they'll have on the future of businesses worldwide.